I think it's important to note that the development of NFPA 3000 does come with a heavy burden. It's through the lessons learned from many of the protocols and training were developed based on those lessons learned. And one such tragedy is the horrific shooting that took place on October 17th, 2017 at the Route 91 Harvest Festival in Las Vegas, Nevada. Here to provide key details and lessons learned from that tragedy is Stephen Thompson, President of the Clark County Firefighters Local 1908, and the Fire Chief of the Clark County Fire Department, Chief Greg Cassell. Again, some of the videos and presentations may include some graphic images. Please turn your attention to the video screens.
This is CNN Breaking News.
We are following breaking news for you. The deadliest mass shooting in U.S. history has happened. It happened last night at an outdoor country music festival on the Las Vegas Strip.
It had just gone 10 on a Sunday night in Las Vegas.
At least 58 people now dead, more than 500 people wounded in a horrific shooting on the Las Vegas Strip.
The gunfire and first police sirens could be heard across the city. The Mandalay Hotel is the tall building in the distance. The gunman was on the 32nd floor.
Individuals that were attending the festival, the number is estimated to be 22,000, were being struck by those rounds.
Every time a group would get up to try to run away, they just start shooting again. And it just kept going on and on.
Run, go!
The eyewitnesses say the gunshots continued for 10, perhaps 15 minutes. Fans describe utter chaos in those moments. Panicked people desperately running for their lives, trying to find someplace to hide.
We had more than 520 people injured, 58 deceased, and more than 200 patients transported to area hospitals.
SWAT teams moved in and surrounded the gunman in his hotel room. He shot himself dead before they managed to break the door down.
Even hours after the shooting had taken place, there were reports that paramedics were still finding victims in hiding.
Good morning, everybody. My name's Steve Thompson. I'm the president of the Clark County Firefighters. I just have a couple things to talk about this morning about the peer support that we had in relationship to this shooting itself and the support we got from the IAFF. We had started a peer support program with administration before this, and we had actually just completed a department-wide training about 5 weeks before the event. On October 2nd, we figured we were in way over our heads. The biggest problem that we had that we noticed right away was we work on a 5-6, 24-hour schedule. So the shift that was going off duty that morning, they were getting ready to go on a 6-day. It goes against all the standards and everything that we've learned in our initial training, but we made everybody come in that morning to the training center in an effort to get a hold of them before they went away for a whole week. I think that turned out to be pretty crucial at the end of it all, and it helped everybody with their recovery. What we did at that meeting, we had a list of all of our peer support members available for them. We had our BHO, or Behavioral Health Organization representatives there. We also had our EAP people there from the county. And we had people available, counselors, anybody who wanted to talk, they could talk. We made it short and sweet. We said, hey, everybody, you did a great job. Go home. We'll talk to you on Wednesday when we set up our formal debriefing. So behind that, early in the morning of October 2nd, I got a phone call from President Shapeberger. He said, anything that you guys need, let us know. We'll do anything to help you. He ended up sending Pat Morrison and his team out. They were there right before lunch. As amazing as that is, the turnaround time. Pat showed up with his team. They took control of everything. They figured out what we needed to do to support our membership. We started with a plan. Pat and his team was very important as far as the formal debriefing on the Wednesday. Once the debriefing was over, his team stuck around. We did some station visits on October 8th. Remember when I said we had a 6-day starting, so October 8th was the next day that everybody came back to work. They took 2 of their peer support team members along with 1 of ours for the experience, and we had the ability to go to every station that responded, and they had positive feedback and reviews from all that. Everything that we did seemed to be positive at that point in time, and everything was going forward, and we got good feedback and support from the IAFF as well. So what we've done in the meantime, after the shooting, the community really poured out a lot of support for us. They did food drives. We gave that stuff to the recovery center that we had on site. They donated all kinds of things from yoga memberships to counseling sessions for free. We had meditation. We had free massages. And at the end of it all, about a week later, we had one of the large casino companies. They did a big concert benefit for everybody who responded with a dinner and some live performances, and that was well received by the membership as well. So what we need to do in the future, if and when this happens again, is we need to keep our peer support teams strong. And the only way to really do that is by recruiting membership and keeping all their training current and on point. We need to make sure that everything that we're doing is in line with keeping consistency across the board, and we need to make sure that our responders that go out to help our members don't get burned out themselves. One of the biggest concerns in the peer support world is that we can burn out our supporters because they're absorbing all the information from everybody that has all their bad days as well. So the recommendations that I would have for any of you, if you have a peer support already, or if you ever get ready for an incident, just to get ready to prepare ahead of time, keep in mind the media isn't your friend. The number one thing you need to do is support your people and secure them and shield them from the media. We need to keep them protected. The media, all they want to do is find a sound clip that they can run over and over, and it'll just make it worse for that particular person, if not your organization as a whole. You need to develop and maintain a solid EAP program when you have to work with your administration to do that. It has to be a sustainable program. It can't be something that you just decide, hey, we'll just run this by, but you have to realize there's ongoing costs and resources that you're going to need to use to keep it going, including training and potential time off for members that are affected. And you also need to identify resources in your community that can help you in your time of need. It's easier in Las Vegas. We have a lot of big corporate casino areas that all have availability for rooms for emergencies or banquet facilities, or they have tons of resources, but some of the smaller communities might struggle with finding someone that could support them if they needed it in an instance notice. And the last thing that I think that you need to do within your organization is you need to encourage your memberships to become social with each other. You need to facilitate that as union leaders by your Christmas parties, your picnics, any of the events that you do, training, seminars, anything that you can do as a group to make everybody feel more family so they'll have more responsibility toward each other. And if anything, spouse groups, anything like that sprouts up, make sure you encourage it and you support that as well through your union. All those things help in the big picture when it comes time and you guys have to lean on each other a little extra. That's the end of my presentation. I'm going to turn it over to Chief Cassell, and he's going to give you guys a review on the shooting itself. Thanks, Mike. Thanks.
Well, good morning, and thank you for the opportunity to come speak at the conference. Thank you to Dr. Moore for reaching out to us many times since this event and seeing what we learned and how we can share it. So our Route 91 Harvest Festival, it's a major concert for us, a big 3-night event in Las Vegas. This particular year was the 29th, 30th, and the 1st of October. 22 to 25,000 attendees every night. On the night of our incident, there was 22,000 tickets sold. And you add in the support personnel work in the bars and all the workers, you're talking north of 25,000 people. It took place on a 17.5-acre venue. It's a very popular venue in Las Vegas. Movie shoots, boxing matches, all kinds of stuff takes place at that event for viewing and so forth. And the last act, Jason Aldean, whose facility we frequented last night, was just beginning his set, closing out this 3-day concert when the shooting took place. So a little bit of an overview of where we are with that. The Mandalay Bay is in the red circle right there. Our killer is on the 32nd floor of that north tower. He had 2 rooms, adjoining rooms, 32135 and 32134. The venue across the street, as I said, 17.5 acres, known as the Las Vegas Village. And then as we got the event going on, very fortunate that we have a joint driveway. You turn right to the police department, left to the fire station, and go dead straight to a really nice golf course. But we had our unified command set up right there. Within about half an hour of the event, we were actually bolted up with the right people doing what we needed to do. The downside is the killer, as the FBI identified, he tried to get 33-135, which is in the tower that points to the southeast. So had he got the room that he wanted, he would have had a direct eye on our command center. You just can't plan for stuff like that. We did the best we could, and fortunately, the cards fell where he got that other room. He was on the 32nd floor, 64-year-old white millionaire. We all think of, we trained for any kind of a person, but when this event hit us, we were thinking this was a terrorist cell attacking so efficiently from an upper-level position. Turned out to be a 64-year-old white millionaire. We would have never seen that coming. He fired more than 1,000 rounds. He had more than 24 high-powered assault weapons in his room, surveillance cameras, a lot of stuff. He had a ventilation system set up. He was very sensitive to smells, so he had a 70-foot, non-collapsible 2-inch hose hooked to a fan in the other room, hooked to a scuba mask on the other side so he could breathe if he was worried about being gassed by the police department or the amount of rounds going off and the smoke filling the room. He was very dedicated to what he was doing. But he did kill himself at about 10:16. So my staff put this together. The effective range of the 223 is the greenish area, and the effective range of the 308. So we talk about hot zones. Dr. Moore just talked about that. It's one of the things we kind of pulled out of our hostile MCI policy is you have to have a designated warm zone before you go. Well, we learned that night we're not always going to have that luxury because we had a several square mile hot zone. And you can see this is from the killer's room looking down on the venue, and you can see the effective range of his weapon sets that he had that night. And you'll start to see in there little locations where EMS branch were initially set up, East Division, right smack dab in the middle of the zone. And there is no avoiding it, ladies and gentlemen. There's no avoiding it. Your people are going to commit, they're going to go to work, and they're going to end up in bad positions. We had trained extensively for what we anticipate, churches, schools, malls, things of that nature. We had not put thought to paper, pen to paper, for somebody 32 floors up. He had 5,000 more rounds in his room when he killed himself. He had the perfect sniper setup. He had the perfect ambush for anybody coming down the 300-foot hallway to try to breach his door. He had the perfect setup. So this is where we ended up. More than 869 injured, multiple states. We had fatalities from Canada, 413 people shot in 10 minutes. It's quite a workload on the hospital systems. We've really discovered, and we've now built something called Hospital Area Command. Part of the recovery thing that Dr. Moore just talked about was prepare for the recovery. Well, we know now that we have to support our hospitals. We have built a system that if we have another major event, non-committed units to that event will be deployed to the hospitals to set up divisions like Sunrise Division, Desert Springs Division, and so forth. The overhead will be built in by a battalion chief, and they will just support the hospitals because our hospitals were just devastated by the amount of patients. One hospital received 220 gunshot victims in 30 minutes. It's just our MCI moved from one spot to the other. We only got our hands on 250 of those patients. I got to get a shout out. I know some of them in the room. Las Vegas Fire and Rescue, Henderson Fire, North Vegas Fire, and we work very well together in Southern Nevada, especially since 2006 when we really had changes in our leaderships at all the levels that made us more efficient in what we needed to do. Lessons learned and reinforced. Those relationships with the law enforcement, first and foremost, are key. It began for us after Mumbai. Our police department took a very hard look at what happened in Mumbai. We're an entertainment industry. They were a similar type of community and socio-economic base in Mumbai, and they got hit. So we studied that, and out of that came what's MACTAC, which is a LAPD term, multiple assault counterterrorism action capabilities. We brought that back, and we started building our programs out. Our fire departments, as I mentioned, our partners, our brothers and sisters, Southern Nevada Fire Operations, we have everything from high-rise firefighting as the exact same tactical worksheet in every rig to our day-to-day stuff, to RIT, Mayday communications, because we cross lines all the time, as probably many of you do. But we really solidified that after 2006, and thank God we did, because it started off with technical rescue, and then it went into structure fires, and then it went into high-rise fires, and it bled over to, hey, we've got this thing that works really well, everybody's on the same page, let's try it for this hostile event stuff, and it paid off. Good communications and relationships with your EMS partners, the communication centers, our dispatch. We have failed to train our local ambulance companies and our dispatch center, as well as we have put time into the police department relationship. We've learned that. So we're working on that now. How do we get them more accustomed to coming into our incident command system? How do they understand what we're doing on our side? Because we trained so much with the cops, we didn't do this with the other ones. Our hospitals, supporting them, and our hotel, resort, and entertainment industry. Again, as Dr. Moore said, having a person in the unified command from the property or from the venue. For us, this was MGM Resorts. We're talking a multi-billion-dollar operating conglomerate across the world. But we have those relationships because we meet with them twice a month. I meet with them twice a month, along with the sheriff and the FBI and the DEA and the ATF. We get together and we talk. And we have those relationships where at 10 o'clock at night or 11 o'clock at night, I can call the vice president or the president of security operations for MGM and say, hey, we got this problem going on. We need you down here, and we need you in our command post. So you can't build that on the night of the event. And then anybody else in your AOR that's specific relationships you think would be good. Preparation, if you don't even have one, you get your EAP going, train on these things, train on these events, get the right equipment. We have 4A vests and 3A helmets across the floor. We're starting to replace them now because they time out. You know, they sit in a bag in a compartment and never see the sun, but somehow this thing goes bad. But that's a budget, that's my budget complaint. But you gotta have it. You have to have that stuff. Study events as they happen across the country. Learn from what happened to us. Learn from what happened in this last 14 days in our country. Because you know who else is learning from that? The killers. The killers are seeing, how did this guy get stopped? Where did this person go wrong in getting their killing stopped? They're learning. They're evolving. We have to evolve. And it's not going away, as Dr. Moore said. And be honest with yourselves. You know, we have the luxury of having a very large, not very large compared to some of your fire departments, but we have almost 700 members. You look at our whole valley together, we have well over almost 2,000, close to 2,000. So we can amass some forces relatively quick, and we have a lot of cops. But if you live in a smaller town, and I'll just use, I don't know Gilroy's staffing, but if that's multiple people going into that event to kill, they may not have the resources to bolt up 4 cops and 4 fire personnel to go into an RTF package and deploy. So be realistic with what you can do. First, they've got to stop the threat, and then we've got to stop the dying, as Dr. Moore said. Resiliency Center, if you don't know what a resiliency center is, you've got to learn it. Figure it out. Call us. We will do everything we can to teach and help you learn what we have learned the hard way. We hadn't practiced ours in 10 years. It saved us as we have those great relationships with the resorts, our other emergency managers, and the city of Orlando and the city of San Bernardino sent people to us because they had just suffered within a recent history a tragedy that spun their resiliency centers up and their recovery centers, and they helped us out and get on the right path. And we have done that. We had people in El Paso just a few weeks ago. We sent 3 down there to help them out with what they were going through. So we will pass that forward. You have to know your EMs. You have to know all of them, not just the one in your county or your city. You got to know them all in that area because you're going to use every single one of them because that's a 24/7 operation for weeks. And your people, your EMs, if they're in your department or just in your community, they cannot work at that pace. So there has to be everybody together as a community. National media, if you're in here, I'm sorry, but you're not our friends. They want one thing and one thing only. They want the story. They're not exactly really too worried about getting it right, in my opinion. And they want to get it out. And they will find some bonehead walking down the street and tell a story that's not right. They will make their own narratives, and they will find your people. We figured that out very quick. I got a 6:15 phone call that morning from CNN's desk in New York at my house. I just happened to answer it because I went home to take a shower. Immediately, we put a gag order on the department, note talking to the media, and we assigned 2 people, actually myself and 1 deputy chief, to do all media for 72 hours. That's all we did. Well, not all we did, but we did every single media request from every single media outlet in the world all day, all night for 3 days with the hopes that they would not hunt our people like they were hunting the people from the hotels. And it worked. And that was just a swag. That was just an absolute lucky guess that we could curb that by just feeding that machine. So feed that machine. Steve took care of it, talking about it before, but again, President Shapeberger and Mr. Morrison, I cannot thank you enough for those crisis teams that hit the ground and bailed us out. You can have your PST built up for your fatal house fires, your drownings, you know, your I don't want to say day-to-day events, but your more routine events. I guarantee you don't have it set up for what we had to go through. Hundreds of people suddenly in one night, in one instance, had to be debriefed. So again, thank you.